Welcome back to this video series about 3x thinking in our second and for now last video about explore, expand, extract, or how it's also called 3x. I'm here with Antony Marcano, who will explain the concept more to me and to you. So hello, Antony.
Hi, David.
In the last video, we did some talking about the theory, like how 3x thinking was invented by Kent Beck, or was first thought up by Kent Beck, and he did a lot of thinking around it, and you too did a lot of thinking and teaching around it. And it basically is a thinking tool that tries to help you figure out in which phase of an idea or a product you currently are and which techniques to apply, right?
Yep, in loose terms, yeah.
Yeah, so it links the success of an idea or a product to its payoff, and this link is not linear. And I think we should, as a short recap of the last video, explain what that means and the three phases, just very quickly.
Yeah, so it's three phases of an idea. The x-axis is in terms of success. The y-axis is in terms of payoff. Success is what signals that your idea is of value to your customer, and the payoff is what signals that it's of value to you, the creator of that thing. For example, for a product, you may a product idea may start out as just a very small experiment. It could be nothing more than a quick prototype that you do a faked screencast of and put the screencast out there, and people might just see that and think, no, I don't like that, and then you might try another approach and another one, and then people might say, that looks like a really cool product, when can we buy it? Now you've tested the market, and then you might still then go on and do further experiments where you create a very basic version of the product and maybe invite a few people to start using it. And then you start to figure out, how is this product going to be of payoff to us? Like you may not know how it's going to make money yet, so you might be exploring different ways in which it could make you money. And really, once you kind of turn the bend from when you discover an idea that is successful, so your customers want it, or some customers want it, might not be your current customers, might be completely different customers that you stumble across, and you find out how it's going to be of a benefit to you, that's when you enter into the expand phase. And the expand phase is really largely about just survival, because it may be growing at such a fast rate that you literally have to throw infrastructure and manual processes and people just to survive that expansion phase. But once that starts to tail off and success slows down and the payoff slows down, then you're now into extract. And at that point, it may be more beneficial to start looking at, well, how can we start automating or simplifying or lowering the operational costs of how we actually got through that expansion phase into extract. And it's the extract area that many large companies think they're operating in, and they apply the same principles where you're extracting the value from something to an idea that really should be considered being in the explore phase.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too, and you said it in the last video that a lot of companies try to play by the rules of extract, but they are actually in explore. And I think I've seen that at my clients too, where they define a solution, write down a user story for a solution where they did zero experiments. They write down in very much detail what they want, then they implement it, and then they release it to the world. And then maybe it works or not, but they are already trying to do this defined process and cutting costs and everything that you would expect from someone in the extract phase, but they are really trying things.
Exactly. That's exactly what I see also. And that's where I think this model is valuable, to help you recognize to first have a language that you can use to share with other people, where you can ask the question, are we applying extract thinking to an explore problem here? And then, oh, maybe it is an explore problem. You can have a conversation around it. And I've actually been leaning on this quite a lot over the last year with with my clients, and it's actually been really, really helpful. It's helped us really get a lot of more bureaucratic steps, shall we say, out of the way for things that we've identified as explore. And one of my clients, in fact, has benefited from this model enough that they, as we worked our way through what kinds of problems are explore, expand, or extract problems within their world, that resulted in them really thinking, are our teams structured effectively to actually fully exploit this? What they've done for now is they've split their teams into kind of sliced their teams in kind of both a horizontal and a vertical. And the verticals take care of, looking at what ideas are successful with our consumers, and they're operating predominantly in the explore space. And what they do is they explore and expand and begin the expansion. And their horizontal teams are much more about the technology, innovation around the technology, the platforms that supports the existing features, the platforms that they can put in place to now start supporting the new ideas that are coming out of the vertical teams. And they kind of complete the expansion process and transition it into extract. So they've actually had a huge benefit from it. In fact, I found out from them the other day that in the first 6 months of this year alone, they managed to more than, because of the rate at which they were able to test ideas and then get them out to market, they were able to nearly double revenue in one of their product areas that had sort of been left alone for a while. And it was given both the attention and the speed of being able to try ideas allowed them to arrive at the things that were going to work for them. In the first 6 months of this year, they nearly doubled the revenue in that part of the product.
That sounds awesome. And I think this also illustrates a point that we didn't really talk about in the last video, which is the fractal nature of this thing, that it's not we as a company are in extract, but every product of the company and every feature idea in every product might be in a different phase, right?
Yeah. And so the company in itself can be in extract, and some of its products might be in extract, and some of them might be expand, and some of them, lots of ideas, hopefully, will be things they're exploring. And I think companies of the future, and even companies of today, even if they don't realize they're doing this, the most successful ones are doing this. It ties in somewhat with an investment model called Three Horizons as well, which is a much older idea. It comes from the Alchemy of Growth, a book called The Alchemy of Growth. And in the Three Horizons, your first horizon was the horizon, I think I've got a slide about this here. So the horizon 1 is your current business. So that's what's making your generating today's cash flow. And horizon 2 are the growth areas, the things that are expanding. And then horizon 3 is the place where you're generating future growth options. So this is where you'd be trying lots of different experiments to see what's the next thing that's going to grow for your business. And obviously these horizons they're rolling horizons, as in, there comes a point where a product may become irrelevant and it becomes your past. And the thing that was your horizon 2 becomes your horizon 1. And the things that some of the things that were your horizon 3 become your horizon 2, and then you need to start generating new ideas again. So this comes from the Alchemy of Growth. And when I was looking at this, I realized that actually those horizons are really just the extract part of a 3x curve, because horizon 1 is where you're extracting today, but you should then be expanding another idea and exploring other ideas. Horizon 2 is where extract will be once you've continued growing an idea, and horizon 3 is really the extract phase for whatever idea you have explored that you've then taken through the growth phase and into horizon 3. So I think this is the idea of having these sort of 3 very different perspectives is not a new idea in terms of the Alchemy of Growth, but this was very much talking about how do we distribute our investment. So generally, in the advice from the authors of that book were talking about, the majority of your money going into generating today's cash flow, because that's the lowest risk investment. A lesser amount going into your invested in growth opportunities, and then having a smaller amount of investment in lots of different ideas, because you don't know which one of those ideas is going to become your Horizon 2 and which one is going to become Horizon 1. And I think what 3X gives us is, so the 3 horizons is one way of thinking about how do we invest, whether it's time, money, resources. When I say resources, I don't mean people, and office space, etc. And but what 3X gives us is a way of thinking about, well, what game are we playing right now? What are the rules for that game? And are we playing by the rules of the current game, or are we still playing by the rules of the old game we were playing? So it just gives us a different way of thinking about how do we apply that investment. So 3 Horizons tells us how much do we invest, and 3X is a way of telling us how do we apply that investment.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about investment later. Maybe stick with how you apply the wrong rules to the phase you're in. I mean, I think it's pretty understandable if you're an established company like a telco and you're operating a customer portal where people can order the newest phone or whatever, then you're clearly in the extract phase. And then you suddenly have the idea, what if we gave people online storage like Dropbox, but with their phone contract? Then I think it's understandable that they treat it as an extract problem too, even though it's a completely different feature idea and they should be exploring, right? So maybe one thing here is to raise awareness. How can we raise awareness?
Well, I think where 3X is at the moment, if we kind of borrow from Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, the technology adoption curve, I think where 3X is at the moment is kind of in that innovators phase. It's not something that it's not widespread. It's not something that everybody's talking about, and
yeah, I think it's like a handful of people worldwide who are really talking about it, right? Like you, Kent, and a few others.
Yeah, just a handful of people that are really exploring at the moment with 3X, and there's a lot to be done to develop it. I've run a few workshops with various people where we've kind of looked at, well, what kind of practices are applicable in each of these phases, what kinds of people will thrive more or less in one phase or another. There's some work out there from Simon Wardley where he's looked at, he talks about pioneers, settlers and town planners, and he's also now making the connection between 3X and some of his thinking, where different types of people will prefer working more or less in one space than the other. So there's a lot of sort of development to be done. I think really it's very much the enthusiasts like yourself and me and a few other people that are really trying to delve into this. Like we know there's something there. We're starting to be able to put it into words, but we're not sure yet. And I think it's just a case of, for those of us who are getting value from understanding it, sharing it with other people, getting feedback, and allowing it to grow organically. And there'll come a point where we can put into a format that the sort of early adopters and the early majority then might start to take an interest in, and then we've got a whole new different set of problems because we'll be having to play by expand rules at that point.
Yeah. One quick question. Could the other thing happen too, that you're staying and explore too long, like you're applying lean startup and MVPs and pivot all the time and you miss the point where you should expand? Or is this hard?
No, absolutely. I think it would be harder to miss in many regards because, people will be banging on your door for your products. and at that point they may be also complaining on Twitter because they've been trying to log into your product for the last half an hour and they can't because your servers can't handle the capacity. And those are going to be pretty clear signs that you're likely to have an expand problem, and you should be operating in that space. Now, of course, again, as I say, I think, and again, these are phases, and you transition. It's not like
you don't flip a switch like
no.
Yeah.
And let me just think. And the payoff also, what is the payoff to you will be different as well. So for a early stage startup, the payoff might just be investment. Like that might be the payoff they're looking for. They might be looking to grow their user base so that they have an asset that attracts investment, but they may not know how that product's going to make money yet. But it doesn't mean that they're not in expand, because they've got lots and lots of users trying to use their products, because they know what the payoff is. The payoff is more investment. And then, at some point, where it becomes less about investment and more about, well, how does this company make money on it actually in a self-sufficient way? Then again, you're back into explore. So you may be extracting from your investors at that point, but now you're having to explore, well, how do we make this product generate revenue? So you're back at the beginning of the cycle again, and maybe we try a little bit with advertising, or promoted hashtags, or whatever it is that the products make sense for that product. But then you're exploring, well, how can this product make money now for our investors? So it's a very, very fluid, very, very fractal, in that a company, like you said, can be an extract. You can have several ideas in expand, and hopefully many, many more ideas going through the explore cycle.
Okay, I think we don't have much time left, and I wanted to talk to you about investment. One thing I remember from a talk from Kent Beck, and I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, was that you optimize your return on investment differently in different phases. Like when you explore, you want, for every unit of money or time invested, you want to learn as much as possible and do as many experiments as possible. While in expand, you want to optimize for growth and for developing features as fast as possible, or and in extract, you want to optimize for lowering the costs or increasing the payoff or the return on time invested.
Well, profitability
correct?
in whatever is the thing that you're interested in, not necessarily financial profit at that point. It really depends on what your payoff is. But yeah, I mean, in expand, it's perhaps largely more about in the examples that
not dying.
Yes, survival. Like the examples that he's given me is much more about survival. I can think of a really good example. So one of my clients is ITV, and which is a UK television company, and several years ago, their online streaming service was something they started building up, and demand for it started increasing quite radically. The skill set and technologies they had available to them at the time resulted in them building all of their services that back to the streaming service in a particular technology, who I won't name, and what happened. But that was and then they could throw more and more money at the infrastructure in order to cope with the continuous and rapid growth of new viewers trying to stream live TV shows and catch-up TV shows. And then what happened as their sort of user base has matured, they realized that infrastructure was costing them a lot of money. So they actually decided, well, it'd be a good idea for us to invest in less expensive platform, and then they moved over to.
Okay, so now they were in extract.
Now they're in extract, and now they have the time and the space to think, oh, this is very expensive. Like before, it was just like, can we survive until tomorrow? And then now it's, oh, we've got time to think about this now, because we understand the problem, we understand the solution, and how could we make this actually a little bit less expensive? So then they started looking at how do they replace all of the services with a different technology that can be in the cloud, running on at a much lower cost. And so they went about the process of starting that. But again, it was unintentional at the time, but when we reflected on it, they also went through the explore, expand, extract with how they applied that, where they explored different technologies, they tried a few different things, they found the one that was working the best, that expanded to support all of the services, and then the old technology has gone, and now they're in the extract phase for the new platform that they have. And they're equally applying this now to many other things, including and this is being consciously applied by teams at ITV now, where they are saying, well, are we exploring here? In which case, how can we try this experiment as quickly as possible? And then when they do land on an idea, the team that understands that idea kind of carries it into the expansion phase until eventually it becomes business as usual, and therefore in extract.
Okay.
Maybe just one more question if you have another few minutes. I think I can see how Agile would apply in the explore phase, like the Agile techniques that we are using, like quick experiments, small steps, and also throwing away things, a backlog that can live and grow and shrink. And I can also see how to use the same things in the extract phase, like where you do small steps but iterative and incremental development. But can we also link the Agile techniques to the expand phase? Or did I get anything wrong in the first two?
I think there are some aspects of of course, Agile is an umbrella term for many different methodologies made up of many different practices. So it's hard to really say, does Agile apply here or there? I think there are elements of Agile methods and practices that some will apply better in Explore but and not in Extract, and some will apply better in Expand and not in Explore, and so on. So I think it's hard to say. There's so many different methods and practices that we call Agile. I think it's safe to say that understanding, for example, in Explore, if the bottleneck for testing an idea out, for example, is writing tests, for whatever reason, if in the context of the team that you have at that time, if they want to try an idea out, you want them to try as many ideas as possible. And as long as the things that need to work are protected by tests, you want to try this idea. You shouldn't need tests. You just need a way of limiting the impact of that thing on your users. So if it doesn't work very well, maybe only a tiny percentage of your users ever saw it. And if writing tests is slowing that team down, if that's the bottleneck, then if it was me, I'd be okay with not writing those tests, because if I'm going to try 100 different ideas, maybe even 1,000 different ideas, and only one of them is going to survive, I'm not going to be worried about. And if each idea takes me maybe a day to try, I'm not going to be worried about whether the quality of the code of that idea, as long as we retain the discipline that if it is an idea that we're going to keep, and it's not one that we throw away, that we then in fact expand will push you to the point where you have to make sure that you keep things working and start to improve the internal quality of the code in order to cope with the rate of expansion. And so one of the things I say is that anything you kind of do up to the point of where you're transitioning from Explore to Expand, at that point it's not really technical debt. It's only debt if you keep it. Mm-hmm. If you actually delete that code, then it's fine. Now,
it would be a wasted money if you did the best thing possible and then throw it away because it's not going to be successful, right?
Yeah, although it depends on the team. I have worked with people who, and to an extent, I feel I'm kind of in the category that I find writing tests helps me with my thinking anyway. So I would not stop writing the tests. So that's why I was saying,
Yeah.
in the context of a team where maybe that part is slowing them down, as long as they've got protection around everything else that needs to work, you don't necessarily need that with each of your experiments. If you have optimized, if you have an existing product, let's say an extract, and you want to be able to explore quickly, then one of the things you may need to do is optimize your product to allow you to explore quickly. So you can drop in completely isolated pieces of code that add new functionality, that if it's not something you're going to keep, you can just delete that code and it doesn't affect anything else. You know, this is the kind of thinking it starts to make you think, oh, well, yes, it's optimized to keep our costs down in operating it, but what if we want to try new feature ideas on this platform? Can we do that quickly? And then you start exploring ways of changing the internal structure of your code so that you can make it easy to start doing experiments, at which point then you can start doing experiments more quickly. So again,
I think I know a couple of big systems that are not optimized for that at all.
Absolutely, and that's the case. Like if you've got a lot of legacy code already, then exploring in that space is really, really difficult. So one of the first things you might want to explore is how to be able to experiment fast and safe. And this is, again, takes us back to the fractal idea. So maybe your feature idea is, or you have a sort of a set of ideas you want to try, but it's in a product that's already in extract. So, you know, you've got to change how you go about doing those, how you explore in an extract product. Whereas if you have no product and you're just trying to explore a product space, and then you might be in an extract company, now you've got to think about your brand. Like, we've got to protect our brand, and if we do a product idea that fails, is it going to have a bad effect on our brand? How can we manage that? How can we make it quick and easy for us to experiment with ideas? And as an example of that, one of the pieces of advice I've given in the past is, well, consider creating a different brand that's intentionally there for the enthusiasts. An example of how that could be applied is where I kind of point people at the history behind O2 and giffgaff. O2 as a mobile operator was significantly involved in helping giffgaff get started. giffgaff is a network that is literally run by the users of the network. They provide support to each other. If someone doesn't know how to do something on their phone, they ask a question and someone in the community answers it. You know, so giffgaff then becomes a place where, if they wanted to, I'm not saying they do this, I'm just saying if they wanted to, they can experiment with new wacky features or ideas, like, you know, cloud storage with your network plan and things like that. They can experiment with ideas with giffgaff, see if they work, and then if they work well, learn from that, and then sell it to the O2 customers later. You know, this is the kind of thing that you could do with that kind of brand separation. I think they're much more separate now. I don't think there's as close a connection between them, but I just use that as an example to say, you know, you can create a brand that is actually intentionally targeting the enthusiasts. So your extract brand can be insulated from the things that you want to experiment with that might not work and might cause bad PR. So you put them in a different place where actually trying and failing is welcomed by the customer base.
Yeah, DynaTrace did the same thing when they moved from a traditional product to a cloud product. They created the cloud product under a completely different name. It was called Ruxit back then. And when the cloud product became successful, when I think in or after the expand phase, they renamed it back to DynaTrace, and now they had DynaTrace Cloud and the other product, and now I think it's only DynaTrace anymore.
So that just, both of those stories give us an example of how fractal it is, and how the interplay between the Zoom level above the one you're at the moment it is a part of the context of the Zoom level that you're currently applying this thinking to. It can even be at an industry level. There are whole new industries that we don't even know are going to exist yet, that people are experimenting with, cool and interesting ideas that maybe only enthusiasts know about at the moment. And those ideas will eventually, they'll figure out how to make that both a success from their customers' point of view and a payoff for them. And then they'll be expanding, and they'll be extracting, and then they'll become extract brands, and then they'll have to change how they go about things. It's a continuous cycle. So this whole new industry could be born from an idea that someone's experimenting with today. So then you've got an industry that might be an extract in the future, that within which there are several different companies, some at any one of these three stages. Within each of those companies, they can have products that could be at each of these stages, and within those products, features that can be at each of these stages. So it's fractal in that sense.
So yeah, thank you, Antony. That was very interesting. I think the important things we talked about in this video was that 3x, or explore, expand, extract, gives us a way to tell us when the rules have changed, because you have to use different techniques and behave differently when a product or idea or feature or whatever you do is in one of those phases. And also that you have to treat investment and what you expect from this investment differently. And I think the second important thing we talked about today was how this whole idea is fractal, that you might work on something right now that's in the extract phase, but you're also working on the next thing, and then on things further in the future, which will be in different phases. Or that you have a product or a company that's in the extract phase, but it works on ideas that are in expand or explore. Did I miss anything?
I think that's about everything. And, the main thing is, I think, to say about also 3x itself is it's kind of still very much in explore. But maybe videos like this might start pulling it in the direction of turning into an expand idea.
Yeah, I hope so. So, Antony, where can people find you on the internet if they want to learn more?
Yep, if they just Google me, that'll be a great place to start. Antony, without an H, Antony Marcano. They can find me on Twitter. It's my full name on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I don't look at that very often. Find me via email from my consultancy's website, riverglide.com. Drop us an email there. And check out the Riverglide blog, which is at ideas.riverglide.com. And there you'll find articles about 3x and lots of other things.
And I will also add some links to this video. And my name is David Tanzer. I am dtanzer on Twitter and on GitHub. And you can also find this video and more stuff about me and my consulting business on devteams.at. So subscribe to this channel, and see you next time. Thanks, Antony, for being here.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.